2 days ago, there was a report that Alice Ndesiani had been acquitted of all the allegations in the UK. And I saw a video where she was thanking God. She kept on thanking God. And I noticed 2 things in that video. The first one was she looked better than when she was even accused of all these allegations. And let's not forget that her lawyer back then came out and said that she also had breast cancer. So she's been through it, having all those problems as well as having a health care. And next thing, this woman is out. She's gorgeous. In fact, she looks slimmer. She looks fine. Everything is standing. And in fact, she looks good. And she kept on praising God and praising God and praising God. And in my mind, I was asking myself, is this not the same God that the poor people are serving? Is this not the same God that the people in the forest are serving? And I was like, no, I have to say something because, on this channel, we say our mind. Hopefully one day to not put us inside trouble, but we say our mind. So let us go back to Daisy Annie. I'm going to be looking down because I don't want to make any mistakes. When you want to talk about somebody, you have to make sure you have all your facts correctly. So first of all, this woman, from my research, she was born the same year Nigeria had its independence. And so it now makes me wonder that people like her who have occupied political positions, when they look at Nigeria now, considering the fact that they came into this world the same time we had our independence, and even though we are not our forefathers, we cannot even imagine what their eyes had seen before they fought for independence and before they got it. So we got our independence, and today as we speak, Nigeria is worse than then. So let's put that into consideration. Now, this woman had the privilege of schooling overseas, which goes back to our educational system of let our children stay back home. Let us not japa. If we japa, we are not patriotic citizens. We are not good citizens. But as we speak, we don't even know any of our leaders, aside Peter Obi, who said his son is schooling in Nigeria. We don't know any of our leaders who send their kids to school in Nigeria. All of them will go overseas, study, and come back and still become our leaders. So she, of course, like every other person, went overseas, which makes me believe that she came from an affluent family. I didn't go to dig deep to know her parents' background because, let the wahala stay with her. So anyway, after then, she came back and then she was working in Shell. As we all know, there was a time in Nigeria that oil money was everything. I don't know about now, but back then, oil money was everything. So during Yar'Adua's time, she became the Minister of Transport, after which Goodluck Jonathan appointed her as Minister of Petroleum Resources. And wahala started when she was accused that a certain businessman who received valuable Nigerian oil contracts paid for a luxury lifestyle for her associates. And so they also, accused her of receiving bribery and all of that. First of all, let me say that this is my personal opinion and I am entitled to it. For me, when I speak about politicians, even people who are, pro or be pro, like for me, when you come to my house and you're having political positions, I do not like it when people fight about politicians or people who have occupied power in Nigerian political settings, simply because I'm of the opinion that once you've been there, you have been tainted. I don't care, you've been tainted. You don't even really have to collect bribe, because sometimes when you are in a system, you don't have to be a participant. You can just be an observer and you can be a beneficiary of what's going on. For example, when we look at our political leaders, we look at their wardrobe allowances and all those kind of crazy allowances. That is clearly a great injustice in a country where the minimum wage is allegedly 70,000, or how much is it? And then we have a lot of people who don't even earn up to that. Let's be honest. So we all know that you don't even have to commit the crime for you to be guilty. That is my own perception. So you won't see me fighting over politicians or choosing a side and I'm throwing bottles. You will not I can have a candidate I support for my own reasons, but I don't take anything too deep because I just feel like all of you are in the same boat. That's my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comment section. The 11 years while this wealthy woman was praying to God to set her free from all the rich cases, because I'll call this one rich man's problem. Let's not forget that the poor people in Nigeria were also praying to the same God for basic amenities, for basic things. You have the poor Nigerian child who has not eaten, the one that had been kidnapped. You are praying for just light, for electricity, for, transport money, for food. So I'm just going to go through everything, because for me, one of the things I struggle with as a person when it comes to Abrahamic religion, simply because that's the dominant one we practice in Nigeria, I struggle with it simply because I just ask myself, if the corrupt and the innocent, if the rich and the poor, if the politicians who are putting the people in poverty and the ordinary masses are praying to the same God, who exactly is this God listening to? And while I'm not one of those people who would sit down here and tell you what to believe in, I just think that I'm one of those people who should say what I think, and then you can make whatever it is you want to make from it. Simply because I remember one time a friend of mine was telling me that if an average Nigerian girl is not doing runs, she's cheating herself. And this was somebody who had lived in the UK. And that's because when he moved to Nigeria, he began to see the dynamics of things. And he was like, no, the system itself, it's unfair. And it's almost as though, and I mean, now you have YouTube, people can make money from social media, but back then there was no social media. So it's when they sell you false hope, you have to work hard. And then you see how most people are struggling to get into political offices simply because of all the free money they get, which is why for me, I don't really think that she had to take any form of bribe. I don't think she had to do that. But are you guilty by association? I mean, if you ask me my opinion, I would say yes, simply because, like I said earlier on, the allowances and the unnecessary money that goes in here and there, which you can have signatures backing them up. Most people who occupy, if not all, political offices or positions are guilty of it. But we're just going to go through the things that have happened to the poor masses of Nigeria in the past 11 years while this case was going on. And you would see how being poor is the main crime that nobody should commit. If you're poor in the Western world, I mean, you shouldn't be poor anywhere in the world. There's no justice for the poor. But being poor in a country like Nigeria, like somebody said, and somebody said to me that if you're a Nigerian and you're poor, you're literally regarded as a nobody, and that's a fact. But let's go to it. So in 2015, Buhari took office promising security and anti-corruption. In December, Amnesty International said soldiers unlawfully killed more than 350 Shias Muslims in Zaria. Don't forget that these were Muslims who were also praying to God. All right. In 2016, Nigeria entered recession. Amnesty reported that security forces killed more than 150 IPOB members and supporters during mainly non-violent gatherings between 2015 and 2016. These were people who were also praying to God. And if we know what IPOB was all about, I don't want to go into all of that, but basically these were people who were passionate about the country and were thinking or thought that it would be better if we went our separate ways for the better good of everybody. Let's just summarize it that way, right? Now, in 2017, a Nigerian Air Force strike hit a camp for displaced people in Iran, which they later said about 170 people were killed. These were also people who were believers of different faiths, and they also died. In 2018, Boko Haram abducted 110 Dapchi schoolgirls, that is children. Children, most returned, but Leah Sharibu remained captive. Farmer herder and communal violence killed about 1,600 people and displaced roughly 300,000 in north-central Nigeria, according to Human Rights Watch. 300,000. Okay. Then, in 2019, Buhari won re-election in a vote marked by delays, violence, logistical failures, and opposition challenges. Many citizens remained frustrated about security, poverty, and trust in the government. In 2020, COVID-19 happened, and that pushed Nigeria into recessions. Enters protests challenged police torture and extortions. Amnesty said security forces killed at least 12 peaceful protesters at Lekki and Alausa, and at least 56 people died nationwide during the unrest. Hundreds of Kankara school boys were also abducted. I'm just giving you a list of the things that, you see, gazillion things that God could have done, as opposed to helping a wealthy woman get out of a problem that, could have been avoided. Let me not talk so much, but I'm only just saying that there were a gazillion number of things that God could have done. But let us keep on talking about it. In 2021, mass school abductions spread across Zamfara. Niger, and Kaduna. The federal government suspended Twitter. ECOWAS court later wrote the ban unlawful. 2022, gunmen attacked the Abuja-Kaduna train, killing passengers and abducted dozens. A church attack in Owo killed 40 people according to authorities. A church attack, meaning these people were praying to God. They were there. You know, when you go to church in Nigeria, you're not just going to thank God, you're going there and praying for something. Nigerian Christianity is asking, because in a country where human beings have failed us, we have to look up to something more, which is why when you look at countries that are developed, you see that religion is not being practiced as much as lesser developed countries. So let's go to 2023. A Naira redesigned. Oh, let's talk about another one that happened in 2022. Catastrophic floods killed more than 600 and displaced 1.3 million. An ASU strike kept many public university students out of class for 8 months. So God is there busy helping the wealthy that have money to send their kids overseas, while the poor people in Nigeria cannot even complete their education because we have these same rich people who are praying to this God, causing problems in the country for the poor people to remain uneducated, either by not admitting their kids, because you look at JAM, you will write JAM, you will write WAEC, you will write JAM, you will write NECO, you will now write post-JAM to get into school. And then for those of us, like for me, I went to Unilag, so that to get to certain universities, you now even have to either be from the catchment area. If you don't know what catchment area is, it's almost like, are you from that state? Are you from that region? And then they've been news or alleged that the cutoff mark for some regions like the north is usually lesser than other states. So you'll see that nepotism, favoritism, corruption, everything. And this is what the poor masses have to deal with, that the rich people do not have to deal with, but yet we are all praying to the same God. So I'm going to carry on. So in 2023, Tinubu won a disputed election later upheld by the Supreme Court. Fuel subsidy and exchange rate reforms drove sharp price increases. In December, a military drone strike killed civilians at Tundubiri in Kaduna. I'm sure these people had all kinds of religions. In 2024, gunmen abducted pupils in Kuriga. Inflation and flood prices reached multi-decade highs. During NBAD government's protests, Amnesty reported at least 24 protesters killed and more than 1,100 people, including minors, detained. Detained. All right. So in 2025, Amnesty said armed groups killed more than 10,000 people in selected northern and central states during Tinubu's first 2 years. According to 1,500 people were killed in the Yelwata attack in Benue. Hunger warnings intensified. In 2026, the economy showed stronger growth and lower inflation than the 2024 peak, but poverty, food insecurity, fuel costs, and insecurity remain major concerns. Lawmakers advanced state police reform as the centralized security system faced heavy pressure. And just because we're in 2026, don't forget that in Oyo and in some other states, kids have been abducted. Children, is it Oyo? Or am I wrong? Let me correct me in the comment section. School teachers have been beheaded. A baby has been killed. Like, all these ones are narrated. These are like the civilized version of the reportings. When you dig into these things further, you will see terrible things which have happened to your average Nigeria that God did nothing about. And when I see people who don't believe in God, I do not doubt their sanity. I do not question them, because I feel like God is a personal thing. That's you have your reason why you believe in God. But the problem I have with people who practice Abrahamic religions is that when you tell them you don't believe in their God, they get very upset, they get very insulting, they threaten you with heaven and hell, and you see the way they look down on you. But if you look at it logically, you would see that there is no rationale behind these actions. It doesn't make any sense, simply because we live in a physical world. We can see what's going on around us. We can see what's happening. When I visited Nigeria 2 years ago, I was telling somebody that you cannot have money and be riding Okada. You cannot have money and taking kidnapping. And the person was asking me why. I said some things that we do, especially those of us who have the grass to grace story, we do it in the name of we are being humble. But that's not humility, simply because when you look at the likes of Tinubu and the rest, the reason why they live their full lives is because they do not have the same Nigerian experience as you and I. You will not see Tinubu now in a bus. You will not see Tinubu now riding keke napep. You will not see Tinubu now going out without security guards. You will not see their children going to the same school as your own children. So what is this humility, and why? And that's why for me, when I see an average Nigerian judging another Nigerian, I just think that people do not understand that the price of poverty is really, really high. And when you look at the recent kidnappings that have happened, not even the recent, anyone, did you see any kidnapping? There are some kidnappings that were rich people, but how many? Even the recent one that they said they kidnapped the daughter of a former whatever. Didn't you see that the next day they had rescued them? Compared to the teacher that was beheaded, compared to the kids that were in the bush, the one that was killed. So the point I'm trying to make is there is no justice for the poor man. And when I think of and how I was so opinionated about a lot of things, and then being an adult and now realizing, wow, this is the world we live in. It's like a world of fantasy. It's like a world of, it now makes you see things differently and now makes you ask yourself, is it that human beings have more sympathy than this God that we all serve? Because if I were to be God, I would, you won't even ask me twice. I would stop all these things. But yet you would have a rich person go to court over enjoyment. Like, I call it enjoyment because the truth is nobody would accuse you of bribery and money laundering if you do not have excessive wealth. Those things are there. You get what I'm trying to say? So this is enjoyment, living a good life, and then you come out acquitted, and then you're giving all the glory to God. And then the poor man is there saying, God, please, I just want you to give me breakfast. I just want you to give me lunch. I just want you to give me money for my child's school fees. So without getting too emotional, please, I would like you to leave your comments in the comment section and tell me what you think about my opinion, because I don't understand it myself. If you do, let me know.